Hi, welcome to Conscious Money. I'm Cleona, founder of Conscious Money. Gain inner freedom and clarity with money and life. And today I'm going to share with you a list of 7 of my favorite nonviolent communication books, which will hopefully serve as a great foundation for you to understand nonviolence better conceptually, and also to integrate the consciousness of nonviolent communication. And to make the video fun for me, I am accompanied by some virgin pina colada, pineapple juice and coconut milk, which is just the perfect summer drink. So first up is Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life by Dr. Marshall Rosenberg. Dr. Marshall Rosenberg developed nonviolent communication in the 60s, and the book itself is an international bestseller with over 1,100 reviews on Amazon. I love the book because of Marshall's storytelling style, and it lays out NVC in a step-by-step, easy way. If you watch some of Marshall's YouTube videos, you will find he relates often the same stories, and he's pretty consistent. He offers clear examples and explanations. This is the foundational book to start with if you haven't read any books on NVC. By the way, this book was shared by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella to his board members, and he named it in his all-time top 7 books. Also, other people who talk about nonviolent communication are Tara Brach, who is a Buddhist meditation teacher, Tim Ferriss, who has an amazing podcast, and you probably heard of his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, and Esther Perel, who is a very good therapist and also has lots of stuff on YouTube. The second book I have is in my Kindle, Spinning Threads of Radical Aliveness by Miki Kashtan. This book was hugely instrumental in helping me internalize and take in a new belief that we humans, you and me, do not have to be ashamed of having needs. Shame is used as a tool in socialization, often to punish, and because of these experiences of shame, we have learned to downplay or even ignore our needs. As NVC practitioners, we ask fully for our needs to be met while releasing attachment to outcome. The book reiterates that fundamentally our needs are life-affirming. Our strategies can be harmful. Strategies are the actions that we take to meet needs, but not needs themselves. Miki shares stories and lessons learned in her life, right from early childhood. She shares snippets of her mother's diaries, and they were very deeply moving and touching to read, because they're shared in a very honest and vulnerable way. If you remember a little bit of your childhood and you remember the visceral experience of what it was to be a child, you will really relate to her stories. There are also some great practices on gratitude, overcoming separation, when you judge someone and you kind of mentally see them as other, and opening up to feedback. I've heard Miki describe herself in workshops as constitutionally collaborative, and this really comes across in her writing and in her blogs. I've learned a lot from her facilitation in workshops, where you pay close attention to systemic factors playing out in a group, like power and privilege, something that we're all learning to collectively be more sensitized to, and something that's still a little awkward and uncomfortable to address and talk about. The book was quite a life-changing read for me. If you're new to NVC, I would suggest add it to your reading list once you have a strong foundation. The third book I have for you is called The Heart of Social Change, How to Make a Difference in Your World by Marshall Rosenberg. I would recommend reading all of Marshall's books. This one really appeals to me because it's very short, more like a booklet, and it consists of excerpts from a workshop that Marshall offered on effective social change. There are very useful role-playing examples to demonstrate how the NVC process works. And my favorite line in the book is, "Peace begins with me." Not always easy to remember. Transformative spirituality is also about mobilizing for action. And my key takeaway from this book is that the most fun game in the world is making life wonderful. And he explains that you make life wonderful when your full consciousness is on a life-enriching vision. That's when it becomes play. life enriching, as opposed to life alienating. Marshall talks about how to have productive social change meetings. Simple things like help people to get clear about their requests and saying finished when you're done speaking in a group are so important. In India, we say bas in Hindi, which is bas done. And I think Marshall talks about it in one of his books. It's a great book and well worth a read. And speaking of requests, it would be fun to connect with you. So leave me a comment below with your favorite book and maybe a sentence or two on why you liked it. Probably be helpful for other people also, flicking through the comments. I don't know about you, but when I watch YouTube videos, I'm listening to the video and reading the comments at the same time. The next book I have for you is Reflections on Living Compassion, Awakening Our Passion and Living in Compassion by Robert Gonzales. The book is like a reading meditation. You have to dip into it quite slowly and really savor the words and allow it to move you and touch you, allow the words to move you and touch you as you read the book. The book touches deeply into the spirituality of NVC and helps you to understand the living energy of needs, the longings of our heart. Robert says compassionate communication is a language of the heart, yet we're not able to fully live the language of the heart unless we're able to access the heart. Living compassion starts with cultivating presence or awareness. Rather than rushing to fix ourselves or change our external situation, Robert encourages us to sit with all that is, our needs, our longings, our fear, and our pain, and simply give it space to unfold naturally. I've read this book many times and always learned something new, even though it's really concise, about 60 pages. The next book I have for you is The Compassionate Presence by Stephen R. Schwartz. I heard of this author by Robert Gonzales, and I enjoyed his writing so much that I bought all his books and also a few audio recordings of talks and meditations via his website as well. Although it's not directly related to NVC in any way, I found the book very helpful in learning how to stay with a quality of openness of the heart. Being open-hearted is an important practice of nonviolent communication, including being open-hearted to your enemies or people that you dislike. The book is refreshingly honest in training oneself how to listen with openness. The book features meditations and dialogues that Stephen has during workshops with participants. If you hate someone, he suggests in one conversation, it's okay to even be honest with yourself and say that you hate that person. To admit the truth to yourself, to admit your honest experience, is very freeing. To be with your experience as it is, and then if you stay with that icky, awkward feeling, something starts to shift. In everyday life, we aren't really honest with our feelings. We play games to avoid discomfort. We want certainty, and sometimes we want to avoid our feelings of lack or unworthiness or anger or anything that causes discomfort. Stephen encourages you to experience whatever it is that is being felt. If it is shame, experience it fully. In fact, I marked out a chapter where he talks about shame and money, and as a financial advisor, I found that part very helpful. Judgment really makes us quite miserable. And so the real gem in this book is it shows you how to just be okay, even with unpleasant states of mind or stories. Just being with an experience as it arises is very liberating. This book is a real treasure. The writing is beautiful, soothing, poetic. Loved it. The next book I have for you is Creating a World That Works for All by Sharif M. Abdullah. I heard of this book by Miki, Kashtan. The book isn't strictly about NVC again. However, it does share about a world where everyone's needs could matter and the game of making life more wonderful for everyone. And so I've included this book in my list. Sharif says that exclusivity is the root of the world's conflict. It's the notion that I am separate from you or from other people. exclusivity as opposed to inclusivity, where you include other people, homophobia, sexism, other forms of hatred and systemic oppression can be linked to this mental conditioning of separation. In this book, Dr. Abdullah offers inclusivity as the way to restore balance and create a world that works for all. The book offers practical solutions that all of us can practice on a daily basis in order to transform our world by becoming the menders. The menders relates to the new emerging human story. He mentions 3 key practices for the menders to participate in: practicing enoughness, inclusive compassion, and reconnecting with our relationships both with one another and with nature. The 7th book I have for you is Choosing Life, the Practice of Compassionate Communication by Richard Broadbent. The first NVC workshop I ever took in London was with Jill and Richard Broadbent a long time ago. The book is simple and concise, filled with clear examples, and the concepts are distilled in a very accessible way. I gifted the book to so many people, including my last copy. I also have Know Thyself, which is very useful to practice. The book focuses on exercises to help bring awareness through exploring beliefs, reactive lack stories, longings, intentions, and so much more. So all useful stuff. A lot of practice is needed to integrate NVC consciousness. And so really I recommend buying both books, although I loved Choosing Life. Check out my other video on nonviolent communication and how it helps me at work. Those were some of my favorite NVC related books. Thank you for watching, and that's my pina colada almost done too. Thank you for watching.